Hey everyone, it's Charles with Hale Consulting Solutions, and I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about what it means to be a HIPAA covered entity. We've had a lot of clients recently talking about, am I a HIPAA covered entity? And so we wanted to go back over some of the basics and how things have changed over the years. So starting off, you know, let's understand HIPAA itself. So the original rule had three major components to it. There's been many subsequent rules that clarify and update these components over time, but it really starts off with the basic three. Administrative simplification, that was the original rule. And that one dealt with how data is being transitioned between covered entities. So this defined the ASC X12 format for sending claims and other administrative transactions, and kind of gave some of the rules about how you should send data back and forth. And these are still in place today. So even though the technology is advanced, we're doing a lot more of this over the web now. Those basic data and format rules still apply. The second rule that came out was privacy, and this is really focusing on the patient rights. So this is, all of the guidance around how to treat a patient's individually identifiable or protected health information, and make sure that the patient has the right to view their data, to request updates to the data, things like that. And then finally, there are the security rules, and the security rules were around on the provider side or on the covered entity side, how you protect that data to make sure that it's kept confidential, that the integrity is intact, and then that it's accessible. So the CIA triangle. So that really is the basic of HIPAA, the HIPAA rules. Like I said, there have been many other and rules that have come out since then that kind of add to this or clarify or update these. But those are the three basic aspects of HIPAA, which takes us into who is covered by HIPAA. So under the original rule, there were three entities identified. The healthcare providers, this is probably the simplest to understand. These are your doctors, your nurses, your hospitals, your healthcare practitioners. So they are covered entities. Little caveat for that, but we'll go over that in a second. But yes, the healthcare providers. The second is the health plans. So these are the health insurance companies. This, it can be one of the big health insurance companies, Blue Cross, Kaiser, those kind of organizations. It can also be company-sponsored health plans. So if the company is sponsoring a health plan for its employees, then it is a health plan and is covered under HIPAA, or at least that portion of the company is covered under HIPAA. And finally, there are the healthcare clearinghouses. This was a big deal back in the late 90s, early 2000s when HIPAA was first being implemented. These were the entities that were taking the data from the providers or from any covered entity, really, and then transforming it into the HIPAA required formats and data content to be sent to another covered entity. So the classic example is claims coming from providers on Excel spreadsheets being translated into the ASC X12 format and then being sent on to the health plan in the HIPAA compliant format. So this was very popular back in the early days. Many of the EHRs and billing services now do this automatically. It's as part of the package, but they're still considered a covered entity under the original HIPAA rules. The caveat I mentioned is, do you transmit healthcare information in an electronic format for transactions that are in compliance with HHS standards? So one of the defined transactions, do you send it electronically? Do you do eligibility inquiries electronically? Do you send claims electronically? Do you get remittance advice electronically? So if you're doing any of those things electronically, then you are a covered entity. That means there are healthcare providers out there and organizations that don't, that they are either fully paper-based and everything's kept internal to their organization. They don't deal with insurance plans and they don't deal electronically. Then they may not be a HIPAA covered entity. If they're fully funded through grants and through, other funding mechanisms like NGOs, they may not be a HIPAA covered entity. But that is kind of a niche carve out. The bulk of healthcare providers and health plans and clearinghouses do fall some sort of transactions electronically and fall under HIPAA covered status. This takes us into the next aspect of it, which is, what is a business associate? So we hear a lot about business associates. What is a business associate? So a business associate is not a covered entity. What a business associate is an organization that a covered entity has contracted with to do services on their behalf. So this might be a billing agency that is doing billing on behalf of a healthcare provider. This might be a company that is doing research on behalf of market research or whatever on behalf of a health insurance company. So these are not covered entities other than themselves, but because they are doing these functions on behalf of a covered entity, and because they have access to and can see the same protected health information as the covered entity, then by extension, they are required to also comply with the HIPAA regulations. The catch on this is that they are considered an extension of the covered entity. So the covered entity shares the liability. So if the business associate is not HIPAA compliant, then the covered entity gets the fine. So that's something you want as a covered entity to pay a lot of attention to, is have really solid business associate agreements. But first of all, a solid identification of who your business associates are, and then solid business associate agreements so you know how to handle these kind of situations and make sure that you're doing your due diligence, that they are also acting, in your behalf as a HIPAA covered or in a HIPAA compliant manner. Let's talk a little bit about the implications of being a covered entity. So first of all, of course, you got the responsibility for securing and protecting your patient information. This is what HIPAA is all about. So as a covered entity, you should be, implementing all of the guidelines and then some to protect and secure your patient information. The other one is complying with all of the HIPAA regulations. So you need to be familiar with or contract with someone who is familiar with all the guidelines. It can help guide you to how to do your business in a HIPAA compliant manner, how to set your systems up in a HIPAA compliant manner, and how to contract with other agencies, with business associates in a HIPAA compliant manner. Penalties, financial penalties. So the OCR, who has been tasked with HIPAA compliance, they can levy penalties against you if they find you to not be in compliance with the HIPAA regulations. And these penalties can be substantial. We've seen them up in the million plus range in the last few years. And of course, there's the damage to your reputation. So your name gets out in the news that you are not HIPAA compliant manner, that you have not been HIPAA compliant, and that you are not doing your part to reasonably protect your patient information. This is negative publicity. This is something you don't want getting out there and associated with your brand. So conclusions and next steps. First of all, understanding your status. So this is really going through and understanding, are you a covered entity? Are you a business associate? And what other covered entities and business associates are you doing business with? And then once you have that, then you can start doing that due diligence of doing the assessments and making sure that you have all of the mitigations, all of the controls in place to make sure that you do your business and your associates are doing their business in a HIPAA compliant manner. And then, beyond the legal requirements. So HIPAA was an attempt, still is, to help the healthcare industry implement best practices around privacy and security. That said, it's an evolving world. There's a lot more to privacy and security now than there was in 1996 when HIPAA was involved. So HIPAA is a guide to help you, but compliance is not security. So having gone through the list and saying, yes, we're compliant, that means you're not going to get an OCR fine, which is a good thing, but it doesn't mean that you are fully secure or that you have really reached the level of security that you should expect as an organization that is handling people's protected health information and financial information. So once again, my name is Charles Hale from Hale Consulting Solutions. So we are a boutique firm based on Las Vegas, Nevada, that specializes in the HIPAA compliance and cybersecurity risk management areas in the healthcare industry. So please, if you have any questions or looking for any clarification or partner to help you implement some of this HIPAA compliance work, please reach out to us. Thank you.